Welcome to your Healing Place podcast with Linda and Mindy. It is our desire to address common concerns of how abortion and faith intersect in order to validate the emotional pain and grief that abortion can bring and give hope that recovery is possible. And this next segment, we're just going to talk about, dive a little bit deeper into the substance abuse part of it. And really, we're trying to help women understand how faith and healing, abortion healing, intersect. And so we definitely want to talk about, how God intervened and, what that was like. Was he there? Can you look back on your life? Because alcohol started as a way to fit in and be accepted, right? And a way
Correct.
to feel good about yourself when you were trying to be accepted and fit in these areas of sex and, that stuff. And I get that. I remember being there too.
Oh yeah, I think we
Um,
all have.
yeah. Do you recall a time that God was can you look back and say that God was there calling you, or were moments where he was protecting you or wanting,
Yeah.
that you can sense he was nudging you to turn away from all that?
Yeah. I recall with my sister one day as we're drinking, we were discussing there must be more in life. Do
Mm.
you feel like you have a hole in your soul? She's like, yeah. And we said, well, maybe we got to go back to church, or what is the solution? And so I think that was the first part that God revealed to me. I'm here,
Mhm.
you're missing out. And that's really when I don't know. I was on and off again with God. That shame and guilt said he'll never forgive me, never forgive me. So I'm not going to talk about it to anyone because I don't want him to hear it over and over.
Mm. So you thought it was a clump of cells, the first abortion, right?
I did on all of my abortions.
All of them.
Yeah, the world just I never had an ultrasound.
Okay.
The world just I was so worldly that I listened to sex was okay, living with someone before marriage was okay. All of the values that I learned as a kid went out the door.
Right. How long ago was that first abortion?
That first abortion was, let's see, I'm 63 right now, and I had it when I was 18.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you had that first abortion. Now you were already drinking, but it wasn't a problem. And then you
Correct.
had the first abortion. Did it become, but you thought it was a clump of cells, but did the drinking get worse after that?
Yes, the drinking got worse, and the searching for love through sex got worse as well.
Was it
I
because of the
never wanted
abortions?
to think about my abortion. I just kind of blocked it and went on with my search for love.
So was it because of that abortion? The sex and the
Um,
alcohol
I
got
would
worse?
I would say yes, that was definitely patterns that I see through the study that I did it goes way back to childhood too. Um, Not feeling good enough, not feeling accepted. So that's kind of the way I lived my life, and I used um, the alcohol even more to feel numb. I didn't really like sex, I just wanted them to hold me.
Right. Oh gosh. And alcohol for me, I know, was one of those things that I thought that I was a better person.
Yes.
What a dumb thing to think. I
Yeah, I
mean,
thought I
really.
could sing better,
Yeah, oh,
talk
gosh.
better.
I
Oh
was
my gosh.
obnoxious on every level, and it was just ridiculous that I thought
Right.
somehow I was a better person. It gave me confidence, but it was
Yeah.
this really false confidence that was always leading to deeper hurt
Yes.
and the hurt of others. I hurt others. I mean, because they
Yeah.
say I hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely
I
me.
remember too, with my first husband, we would argue and I would forget what we argued about. So I'd go to bed all mad and I'd write it down. So the next day I'd be like, why was I mad? And I'd be able to bring it out
Oh gosh.
and see why I was mad. And that was that blackout stage where you just don't care and you want to not think about it.
So the alcohol got worse partly because you felt bad about yourself. Was it ever in relation to any of the abortions that alcohol got worse, or did the abortions make you feel worse about yourself?
Um, the abortions made me feel worse about myself. Not knowing God, um, just kept me in that cycle of searching. And the abortions, I wanted to believe it was a clump of cell until I realized it wasn't. Was I able to accept, not accept, present to God my sins and acknowledge that it was a child? Was I able to become free? Because before I wanted to believe it was a clump of cells.
Right.
But even though we want to believe it, there's something in our mother's hearts and our DNA, the way God made us, isn't it? That we know
So
different.
true.
We talk to women on the hotline all the time that are crying and saying, I made the right choice, I'm glad I did what
Yeah.
I did. Why can't I stop crying? It's
Yeah.
like our bodies and our subconscious know, even if we
Yep.
won't acknowledge it intellectually.
So
Yeah.
true. Our
Right.
bodies are responding, but to what our head doesn't understand. And that's what it sounds like was happening with you. And so, did you get sober first and then come back to the church and then get healed?
Yes, I
Okay.
came sober first. Yes. Um,
So, how did God lead that? Because we know God led you and gave you the power to do that.
yeah, I was just kind of sick and tired of living my life. I mean, I was divorced twice, had one child. I regretted not having other children because my child was my joy.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's where I focused most of my love instead of Christ. She was accepting of me,
mm,
and um, she actually had a stillborn
mm.
while she was married, and I thought God was
Ooh,
paying me back too
Wow.
for the decisions
through a
I made.
grandchild. Wow.
Mm,
Wow.
yeah, so that's the lies that the enemy, tells us.
And did that propel you into sobriety or to seek sobriety at that point?
No, it was really knowing what alcohol kind of did to my body and that I wasn't making smart choices. And, I look back on my life and I was like, well, that was stupid. That was stupid. And it was all alcohol related. And I was worn out of of all this bad stuff. And I wanted a new life.
Mm, wow. That's kind of interesting how God does that. He didn't plop his word in front of you. He didn't, necessarily put a Christian in front of you to speak truth.
Right.
He just kind of gave you understanding and started shifting as you would instead of it was almost like I could see him protecting you in that shifting you to think about these things, but not downward into a spiral of shame to where you'd want to drink more and forget, but that you were just done and tired. I want out. Like it was
Yeah.
almost like he was at the hole, at the opening in the hole, and he's like, come on, oh, come on, you could do, I'm right here. You ready to grab my hand?
Yeah.
Um,
I've been waiting.
yeah, look up, look up. And it was like you started looking up, not really even knowing it was him, getting
Yes.
ready to pull you up out of there.
Hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, how how have you grown in the Lord in this? And just, how hard was it to shift to depending on God versus depending on alcohol?
I was blessed enough to have a spiritual mentor kind of walk with me and say, read this Bible verse. So I never really read the Bible until I got sober. And that started my journey. And then I would dig deeper and ask questions, ask my pastor questions and form that relationship with Christ on my own. Not really anyone telling me this is the way you got to do it, but just out of my desire to know and live for Him.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
God is so good, and there is no dark mess that he can't enter into. And I love Psalm 139. If we make our bed in hell, he will
Mm.
he will find us there. That's not the exact
Amen.
words, but he is there. And it's not that he's in hell, he's waiting for us, he's wanting us, he's wooing us. He's probably talking to us the whole time. Our ears are just clogged up with the lies of our own thinking and, the world and the enemy
Yes.
and all of those things. And yet he's always there for us, waiting. Moment we call, moment we humble ourselves, he will lift us out. And I always love King Manasseh. He was, when I was early in my Christian walk, hadn't dealt with my abortions yet, but was living with the shame of them, just like, we've talked about and with others. When I read his story, I was like, thank you, God, because King Manasseh was the wickedest king of Israel. And in fact, when his son Josiah became king, Josiah had, or I don't know if it was right away, but maybe it's his grandson, and it might have that timeline messed up. But Josiah, Josiah had great reforms in Israel, and one of the biggest Passovers sent Solomon, and Zechariah, the prophet, was sent to him and said, "Doesn't matter, because of Manasseh's sins, we have to judge Israel." So
He
that's how
even sacrificed one of his children in
he
the
sacrificed
fire.
his, yep, and he
Yep.
encouraged Israel to do it. So he was an extremely wicked king. And God sent a more wicked nation in to discipline them, took him away with hooks and fetters into their prison. And while he was there, it doesn't tell us anything else. Just while he was there, he cried out to the Lord. The Lord delivered him and restored him to being king. And when I read that, I thought, well, I'm King Manasseh. If I can identify with anybody on my sin, it would be King Manasseh for sure,
Mm,
you know.
mm.
And yet God is a God of restoration, and he's there the moment we call, because he's looking at the heart, not necessarily the words. He's there when we cry out to him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I remember back to my alcohol. They told me to get on my knees and ask for 1 day of sobriety, to humble myself and ask the Lord for sobriety, because they kind of said, I can't, he can, so let him. And that was pretty life changing for me too.
mhm.
And I carry that with a lot of my struggles.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was inspired by the many conversations had through the years with women struggling from the emotional pain associated with abortion. Thank you for allowing us into your healing journey. Subscribe on major platforms where podcasts can be heard. Learn more about virtual abortion recovery healing at www.anevenplace.com. The link is in the show notes.